So Dr. Nick, I just told everyone I apologize. I never got the links out from last week. So before I get up, I'll send out last week's links and this week's links. So
okay, well, the class is cancelled then. Nobody did their homework. I can't even remember what they were. What were they?
No, the homework wasn't related to the links. It was the link on Khunu Lama's life.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, yeah. We'll do that. You can send them out this time. Yeah, I was going to say something about that. Anyway, never mind. Okay, so we all here? Ready? So you've all been meditating already?
Most of us.
Most of us, okay. Well, let's just do a couple of minutes meditation on the breath before we begin, and we'll do our motivation. So just sit comfortably in your best meditation posture. Find your breath going out, coming in through your nostrils, and just focus there for 2 or 3 minutes. So now think, the purpose of my life is to lead all sentient beings from suffering to enlightenment. In order to do that, I have to reach enlightenment myself first. And that depends on understanding, practicing, and accomplishing the entire path to enlightenment. And this path to enlightenment is summarized in many different texts, including Lama Tsongkhapa's Foundation of All Good Qualities. So in order to understand an overview of the entire path, I'm going to participate in this session this morning on Lama Tsongkhapa's Foundation of All Good Qualities, which is a glance meditation on the whole path, referring to the commentary of the great Bodhisattva, Khunu Lama Rinpoche. And again, I'm doing this in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So, very briefly, generate bodhicitta, the principal cause of enlightenment, by thinking something like that. Okay. So I hope everybody's doing well. This is our third session on this, last one, fourth one next Sunday. So I better keep moving, I guess. Just to review the text so far, the first verse is, the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him or her with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once is greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. I think that's as far as we've gone, right? Just the second verse. We didn't even finish that. So I was talking about the perfect human rebirth and I think promoting this book, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's extensive commentary on perfect human rebirth. This is distilled from more than 40 years of teachings on the topic. So it's one of the most extensive treatments on it that you'll find. And so I think I'll move on from that, but strongly recommend that you study this book. And as I was saying, this teaching on the perfect human rebirth, it's given in order to so that we can exhort ourselves to extract the essence from the perfect human rebirth. And in the Lamrim, in the Lamrim outline, in the main section, the fourth of the four main sections is how the disciples are led on the path. The first section is generating devotion to the Guru, which is the root of the path. So we've even done a series on that. And then the next section is having become devoted, how to extract the essence. And that's divided into two, exhorting ourselves to extract the essence from the perfect human rebirth, and then how to extract the essence from the perfect human rebirth. So how to extract the essence is what we're approaching now. And then there are these three levels, the path of the lower capable being, path of the middle capable being, path of the great capable being, those being the translations that Lama Zopa Rinpoche uses, which are fairly literal from the Tibetan, and we're probably more used to seeing them referred to as the three scopes: the lower scope, the middle scope, and the great scope. So same thing. So having understood that we've received perfect human rebirth and that it's greatly meaningful in three ways, it's greatly meaningful for obtaining temporal benefits. If we understand, so having a perfect human rebirth means that we can study the teachings of the Buddha in full, including the teachings on karma. So, for example, we can understand the kind of, if we want to have be wealthy in a future life, we can do the practices that bring about that result, practicing generosity and so forth. So, whatever temporal results in cyclic existence we want, we can create with this perfect human rebirth. So it has that benefit. Then it has the benefit of being able to, for our being able to achieve ultimate results. So there's a sort of temporary ultimate result of liberation in cyclic existence. It's an ultimate result in that we can, once we've attained liberation, nirvana, having transcended our ego and overcome delusion and karma, we can never fall back into cyclic existence, but it's not the end of the road. So in that sense, it's temporary in that, we still have work to do. So Lama Yeshe used to say that it takes, to achieve liberation is like an incredible effort. And even though it's considered the goal of the Hinayana path, the lesser vehicle path, we shouldn't disparage it out of hand because the title of the path is lesser vehicle. Lama used to say that if we look into our own minds, we find, even though we might think, oh, I'm a Mahayanist, I'm practicing the Mahayana path, I'm going to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. If we really look into our minds and if we understand what it takes to attain liberation, we'll see that we're probably not even on the Hinayana path. And the essence of that is renunciation of cyclic existence. Just feeling horror and disgust at the nature of samsara and day and night only wanting to get out. And so this wanting to get out can be for our own sake or for the sake of all sentient beings. But even if it's simply for our own sake, which is considered a lesser goal, it's still an incredible achievement. It takes enormous amount of understanding, meditation and energy. So practitioners whose goal is to attain individual liberation, still they have to practice perfect discipline, morality, keep their vows perfectly, have to develop perfect single-pointed concentration. So even there, we know where we are on that path. Perfect single-pointed concentration and realize emptiness. So, but with all that effort, when they achieve that goal and their consciousness is free from the beginningless cyclic existence, free from beginningless delusion and karma, the tone of the mind is indescribable bliss and incredible release of the beginningless suffering. And so there's tremendous energy just to kind of relax into that liberated state of pure consciousness and kind of coast or remain, because of perfect concentration, remain in that state for eons. I don't know if anyone knows how long an eon is. I mean, you can't put a number on it. I saw someone on TV from the White House talking about quadrillion the other day. It's much longer than quadrillion years, which was what? 1 with 15 zeros to the 4th power, something like that, the person was saying. So when someone asked the Buddha, how long is an eon? The Buddha said, well, imagine there's this cube of granite, 7 miles long. I think he said it was 1 league. Anyone think in leagues? A league is supposed to be 7 miles, I think. 7 miles long, 7 miles high, 7 miles deep. So a cube, solid granite, no cracks or crevices, solid granite. And then once every 100 years, someone comes out with a piece of the most delicate silk, chiffon from Benares, Varanasi, which is where they made the finest silk chiffon, comes out and lightly strokes that block of granite and then goes away. And then 100 years later, someone else comes out and strokes the rock again with a piece of chiffon like that. Buddha said that cube of granite would be worn away before 1 eon has passed. So, it's a fairly long time. So many eons. So, when they say, when we talk about the Mahayana path being divided into 2, the Paramitayana path, the path of perfections, the Sutrayana, or the Vajrayana, the Tantric path, the Tantrayana, Mandrayana, being the quick path. The Paramitayana path, the Bodhisattvas follow, the path that Guru Shakyamuni Buddha was said to have followed, takes 3 countless great eons. So it's not, an eon is like the block of granite. So 3 countless great eons. So it's a great eon, which is much longer than that, than an ordinary eon, great eon. 3 countless great eons, then countless great eons, that's kind of countless, and 3 of them. So 3 countless great eons to reach enlightenment following the Paramitayana path. So, the bodhisattvas with unbearable great compassion who can't stand that sentient beings should suffer for even a moment more, when they look at 3 countless great eons of path stretched out in front of them, they think, isn't there a quicker way? So for those who have the greatest compassion and the greatest skill, the Buddha did teach the Vajrayana path. But again, out of 1,000 Buddhas, so out of 1,000 Buddhas, so we're living in what's called a fortunate eon, when 1,000 Buddhas will descend with, long periods of time between them. And we're in the period of teachings of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, but those teachings are on the wane. And when these Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings finish, we have to wait a long time for Maitreya Buddha, that one. Looks like he's here, but there's only a statue. When the actual Maitreya Buddha comes, then he'll found the teachings under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, like the Shakyamuni Buddha did, and start his cycle of teachings. Now, so Shakyamuni Buddha was the 4th out of the 1,000. Buddha Maitreya will be the 5th. So out of those 1,000 Buddhas, only 3 teach Tantra, it is said. Not because they don't know it, but because the karma of the sentient beings and the ability of the sentient beings is such that they would not be receptive. So we're extremely fortunate. So, not only do we have this perfect human rebirth with 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses, we kind of have this 11th richness of being born in a time and with the ability to receive, understand, and practice Tantra. So, it's extreme, as you see, 3 out of 1,000, it's extremely rare. So, and that's why the Lamas often say that, we should receive initiations when we can, but again, with the proviso that you need to check your guru very carefully before you take initiation just from anybody. As we have the chance, we should imprint our minds with Vajrayana empowerments and teachings as much as possible in order to create an affinity with those teachings and then be reborn again in the presence of the teachings of a Buddha who teaches Tantra. I was at a center once with His Holiness Song Rinpoche, a great Lama, that one of the teachers of Lama Yeshe Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I don't know if anybody here met Song Rinpoche. Very stern-looking Lama with a long white beard. I think eventually I'm going to shave all this stuff off and I'm going to have a long white beard like Song Rinpoche, which is about the closest I get to him. But he was giving initiations and some students said, he found out some of the students weren't going to take the initiation. He asked why. And one of the students said, because I feel that if I take the initiation and I can't keep the commitments, I'll go to hell. And Song Rinpoche said, well, you're going to hell anyway, so you might as well go for a good reason, So that was his attitude. So, it's an extra thing that we have in this particular life to be born in the period of Guru Shakyamuni. Maitreya Buddha won't teach Tantra. The first of the 1,000 Buddhas, the 4th, Shakyamuni, and then I believe it's the last, the 1,000th, will teach Tantra. All the others won't. So countless great eons. So I'm talking about how long an arhat stays in the bliss and the perfect peace of nirvana, having escaped psychic existence through intense effort. So the power of that effort propels that practitioner's mind to remain absorbed in the bliss of liberated consciousness for eons. But then Lama used to say, eventually, after many eons, that the power of that motivation begins to wane, and at that point, the Buddha knocks on his mind and says, "Hey, wake up! Well done, escaping psychic existence, but long way, baby." So that was one of Lama's expressions, "Long way, baby." I don't know if anyone remembers the Virginia Slims cigarette ads from the 70s. Don't give away your age, but you've come a long way, baby, but baby, you've got a long way to go. So that was Lama's abbreviation of that sentiment. You've come a long way, baby, but you've got a long way to go. He'd often say, "Long way, baby." So the Buddha knocks on the arhat's mind and says, "Long way, baby." So then that liberated consciousness has to kind of awaken and see, oh, this is not the end of the road. I thought I'd finished my work. And maybe you finished your work, but you haven't, well, you haven't, but there's still all the work for other sentient beings has to be finished. So, so then that arhat has to enter the Mahayana path by studying and practicing bodhicitta and, progressing through the 10 bodhisattva levels and then attaining enlightenment. So, they liken it to, there's two powerful tributaries coming together and joining to form a very powerful river. So if you want to get to the other side, you can choose to cross where there are the two tributaries. So first you cross this one, then there's a bit of land here, and then you cross the second one. So that takes quite a while, depending how long you relax in the middle. Or you can decide to cross where they join, which is wider and more dangerous. The water's flowing harder, but it's quicker to get to the other side if you cross after they've joined. So that's is it a simile? Is it a metaphor? Is it an analogy? Whatever it is, it's like practicing the Hinayana first and attaining liberation and staying in the blissful state of consciousness for eons is like crossing one branch, and then remaining in the middle for a while, and then having to cross the other one. Whereas following the Mahayana path is like crossing after the tributaries have joined. So it's more difficult, but you get to enlightenment more quickly, enlightenment being the other side. So now I can't remember why I got into that, but yeah, I remember. So the benefits of the perfect human rebirth. So one is temporal benefits. The second is the ultimate benefits. Two kinds of ultimate benefit. The benefit of having, of attaining liberation for oneself alone, which is ultimate in the sense that you can never go back, but it's temporal in that it's not the end of the road. You have to cross the other tributary, so supposedly. So, whereas the main ultimate benefit is being able to attain enlightenment. So that's a big benefit of the perfect human rebirth. And then the third way that it's greatly meaningful, as it says in the text, is that it's useful every moment. So we can do everything we do with bodhicitta, even our worldly activities. I'm sure you've all studied thought transformation teachings over the years, where we're taught how to transform good situations, bad situations, neutral situations, any situation into a cause for enlightenment by transforming that action with the bodhicitta motivation. So, that's a very important skill to have, because most of our life is spent, working, eating, sleeping, talking to people, watching TV, exercising, doing all kinds of different things. And if we know how to do all those things with bodhicitta, then that's the way to make every moment of our life meaningful. And the perfect human rebirth gives us the opportunity to learn how to do that and to make, every post a winner. So just to throw in a racing metaphor. So that's, often you'll see people call this teaching the precious human rebirth, whereas I think it's more correct to call it the perfect human rebirth, because all human, all human lives are precious in that it's one of the least suffering forms of life in cyclic existence. And being human does give us the opportunity to meet and study and practice the Dharma, depending, of course, on our circumstances, as we saw last week. But perfect human rebirth is perfect in all these different aspects. So it gives us the opportunity to practice, whatever Dharma we can according to our proclivities and interest. And, it's difficult to find again because the cause is so hard to create. Anyway, I said I wouldn't spend more time on this, so I won't. So please bless me, generate the mind that unceasingly, day and night, takes its essence. So that's, taking its essence is doing everything with bodhicitta. So we go to sleep with bodhicitta. When we wake up in the morning, we should think, like I just said at the beginning of the session, we dedicate our life to enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings. I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous class. Normally I'd forget to generate if I woke up without a prompt. So someone gave me this Namgyalma amulet once. Did I mention this before? So I don't sleep with this because you can lie on top of it, you roll over, and it's like stepping on Dharma, which is a no-no. So I take it off at night and I hang it by my bed, and then in the morning when I put it on, it reminds me to dedicate my whole life, especially this day, to reaching enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So, if you're a bit thick like me, if you can have something that reminds you, I don't know, maybe if you set an alarm, the alarm can be something like practice bodhicitta, practice bodhicitta, practice bodhicitta, something like that. I don't know if they make one, but maybe you could make your own. Okay. So I think I read Khunu Lama's commentary on that, so you've got that. So I won't do that again. Then Khunu Lama Rinpoche says, the next verse tells us that the perfect human rebirth is not only difficult to find, but also decays very quickly, like a water bubble. So the third verse, life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of negative and positive karma ensue. So there's a lot in there. There's teaching on impermanence and death, and teaching on karma and its results. So Khunu Lama Rinpoche says in his brief commentary here, death is certain, but when it will arrive is not. So as we know, we can die at any time. One thing that's for sure is that we are not going to live for 100 years. 100 years from now, pretty much everybody alive today will be dead. So few people live for 100 years. I don't know how they commemorate it here, but in the British Commonwealth, or the former British Commonwealth, or whatever it is now, the people who reached 100 used to get a telegram from the Queen congratulating them on being 100. So I don't know if they still do that or not, but so in Australia, people would it'd make the newspapers, oh, so-and-so got 100 and got a telegram from the Queen. So a 100 years from now, pretty much everybody alive today will be dead. It's very important to remember impermanence. So we talked a bit about impermanence, haven't we? Gross impermanence and subtle impermanence. Talked about that in the first session. The Kadampa Geshis used to remember impermanence all the time in order to avoid seeking the comfort of temporal life. They felt that if they didn't bring it to mind in the morning, impermanence, they were in danger of wasting the entire afternoon. And if they didn't bring it to mind in the afternoon, they were in danger of wasting the whole night. By constantly keeping impermanence in mind, they were able to prevent the meaningless thought of seeking only the comfort of this life from arising. You know, in the Lam Rim, there's stories. There's one Geshe who lived in a cave, who was meditating in a cave, lived in a cave. And at the entrance to the cave, there was a thorn bush growing. And every time he went out of the cave to go to the bathroom or get water or something, his robes would catch on the thorns and tear a little. And he'd think, oh, I should really cut those back to avoid, ripping my clothes to shreds. But then he'd think, but, I'm going out. I may die while I'm out here and not even have a chance to go back. So why should I waste time cutting the thorns? And then when he went back in, the thorns would catch again on his robes and he'd think, I really should cut that back. But then he'd think, well, I may never come out of my cave again, so why should I waste time doing that? So like that, he spent decades ripping his clothes to shreds and never cutting the thorns. After death, our mind doesn't come to a complete stop, like water drying up or a flame going out. There is continuity. Just as wherever the body goes, the shadow goes along with it. Similarly, wherever our mind goes, our karma comes along too. You must have unshakably firm belief in this. Yeah, I never forget Lama Yeshe back in 74, he gave a bunch of us the Vajrasattva initiation. This was kind of the first retreat. He put a bunch of students into the Vajrasattva purification retreat, 3-month retreat. We were in Nepal. And he gave, quite a long commentary, which is published in a book by Wisdom Publications called Becoming Vajrasattva. That commentary he gave in 74 is the main body of the book. And right at the end, pretty much the last thing he said at the end of the teaching was, so do your retreat and have great devotion to Vajrasattva. And then he added, and karma. So having devotion, or, as Khunu Lama says, unshakably firm belief in karma. That was Lama's parting gift at that time.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What that is, it's going to sound silly, but what is the difference between impermanence and emptiness? I mean, yeah, that's the question.
Well, one answer could be, well, they're totally different things. Impermanence operates on the level of conventional truth or relative truth, and which is the level on which karma operates, cause and effect. And emptiness is the ultimate truth. And in fact, was I promoting this? Jeffrey Hopkins' book, Meditation on Emptiness, as is incredibly great. You can see rabbit ate the cover. This is an incredibly useful reference book for anyone practicing Mahayana Buddhism because it explains everything. And there's a section, and this was one of the things that attracted me to these teachings when I first heard them, was that Buddhism undertakes to explain in fine detail everything that exists. And in fact, where is it? There's a chapter here called The Selfless, which is, I don't know if everybody knows who Jeffrey Hopkins is. He's one of the great early American Tibetan Buddhist scholars. He and Bob Thurman and another guy called Chris George started out in the late 50s, I think, with Geshe Wangyal, who was one of the first Tibetan Lamas. Actually, he was Mongolian. And he came to the States in the 50s, even before the exile from Tibet of His Holiness and the others, and established what's called the Tibetan Buddhist Learning Center in Washington, New Jersey. Geshe Wangyal. This book, called The Door of Liberation, was published by Wisdom. It's some collection of his teachings, essential teachings of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. A wonderful book. And so he was really the first Lama to introduce Tibetan Buddhism to any extent, anyway, that I know of, in this country. And Jeffrey Hopkins, Bob Thurman, and Chris George were three of his earliest students. And this was Jeffrey Hopkins' PhD thesis, published by Wisdom in '83. This was his PhD thesis turned into a book. So in this chapter called The Selfless, he says, traditionally, a master begins a student's instruction with a presentation of the Buddhist world. He starts with the selfless as a basis and divides the selfless into the existent and the non-existent. So Buddhism really, the study of Buddhism encompasses the study of everything, even the non-existent. I don't know how you study the non-existent. What he says, like a rabbit's horns. But it divides things into, existent, non-existent, and existent. And then the existent obviously takes over. And then that's divided into permanent and impermanent phenomena. Now, permanent phenomena are relatively few. Nearly everything is impermanent. So, but existence, existence, TS, plural, is divided into permanent phenomena and things. So permanent phenomena are defined as phenomena that do not disintegrate. Disintegrating phenomena being those which cease every instant due to causes and conditions. So we talked about that before. We didn't talk much about the permanent. The permanent are specified as non-disintegrating phenomena because the non-existent or non-phenomenal are also non-disintegrating. Because of the inclusion of the word phenomena in the definition of permanent, non-existents are not permanent, even though they do not disintegrate. A synonym of permanent phenomenon is uncompounded phenomenon. There are two types of permanent phenomenon, an occasional permanent and a non-occasional. Anyway, this is getting too technical. But the divisions of permanent phenomena are space. So space doesn't disintegrate. It doesn't have it's not created by causes and conditions. It's just there. Analytical cessation, and non-analytical cessation, and suchness. So anyway, without spending more time on that, highly recommend this book as a reference book, because any concept that you come up against, whether it's permanent or impermanent, or minds and mental factors, or bodhisattva levels, or emptiness, of course, anything, it's explained in this book pretty much. So it's a really important book to have on your shelf, I think. Meditation, or on your tablet. So emptiness is one of the permanent phenomena. So right there's impermanence, all these other phenomena, and then the divisions of impermanent phenomena are mind, matter, mind, and neither mind nor form. So impermanent phenomena divided into three, and then the physical phenomena are, objects of sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. So all those divided and subdivided and subdivided. And the mind is divided into primary consciousnesses and secondary consciousnesses, and the secondary consciousness is divided into 51 secondary minds, and so on. So impermanent phenomena have all these different divisions, and then there are certain phenomena that are neither mind nor form, such as personality and time, and I think there are 21 or 22 of those. So anyway, if you really want to know, get this book. But Jack, the question was the difference between emptiness and impermanent phenomena, was it?
Yeah, between emptiness and impermanence. And like one of the things that you just said.
The sound is pretty scratchy.
I'm scratchy?
The sound, yeah.
Sorry.
Better see your doctor.
The difference between them. Yeah, because like when I read like the end of the Diamond Sutra, it sounds like it's mixing those things up. It talks about like a dream, and like a bubble in a stream, like a tiny drop of dew, and like a flash of lightning, and those all sound impermanent. But then, like a phantom, like a dream is more like emptiness because it's not real. Well, it's real, but it's an illusion.
It says no conditioned things as such. So it's talking about conditioned things. It is talking about impermanent phenomena there. I think Lama Zopa Rinpoche anyway has given an explanation for each of those nine things, I think, aren't there? So that's at the. So I think it's saying, it's just a way of explaining impermanent phenomena, really. I don't think any of those 9 things are said to be emptiness, but they're all empty. Everything is empty. They're empty of inherent existence. So the big difference between impermanent phenomena, or impermanence, and emptiness is that impermanence is the nature of conditioned phenomena, and emptiness is the nature of all phenomena. And emptiness is permanent. So the chair, which is an impermanent phenomena, for as long as it exists, has emptiness as its ultimate nature. But when the chair ceases to exist, so does the emptiness of the chair.
Sorry, but then, so how is the emptiness permanent if the emptiness ceases to exist?
Again, we come to this question. Maybe Vicky can give you the answer to that. Empty. We have, again, we need to distinguish between gross impermanence and subtle impermanence. So gross impermanence is, well, here's the chair, and you know, somebody took these bits of wood and put them together, and there was this object that has the function of being able to be sat upon, and by virtue of that collection of parts in that particular shape with that particular function that you can sit on it, our mind labels that a chair, and conventionally we'll all agree that's a chair, you know, or a seat, or a stool, or something to sit on, or stand on if you want to reach up high. It's a chair. And as a functioning phenomenon, it has emptiness as its ultimate nature. So the chair itself is an impermanent phenomenon because, you know, but it has gross and subtle impermanence. The subtle impermanence is while the chair exists, if you look into it, you'll see that all its component parts are made of molecules and atoms, and the atom, there's nothing static in it, even for the slightest fraction of a second. It's the atoms, you know, the electrons and the nucleus, and everything's moving. It's all just, it's just a bundle of energy, you know, and it all can be taken apart and sort of disappear like that. So, and eventually it does. And that's its gross impermanence, that eventually the chair, whether it falls apart or the wood rots or you burn it or whatever, eventually it disappears. So that's its gross impermanence. But while it hangs together, it has subtle impermanence going on within it all the time, you know. And so that's its conventional relative nature. And its ultimate nature is that it doesn't truly exist. There's no real chair there. It's just a collection of parts that our mind labels chair. There's nothing chair, there's no chairness coming from the chair. You know, even in other languages, it's not called chair. You know. So, you know, it's important to understand the difference between gross and subtle impermanence. Okay, think about it. It's the end of my knowledge on that topic. You know, I think I said last week that these early meditations on perfect human rebirth, and then the next one on impermanence and death, are the fuel, like the rocket fuel that gives us the energy to follow the path all the way to the end. It's a long path, you know. There are a lot of obstacles along the path. There are things to overcome, you know, mainly our negative minds and bad habits. So it can take a lot of energy. So we really need strong motivation, you know, like the renunciate who hates samsara, only wants to get out, and then once out, coasts in this blissful state of peace for eons. we need a strong energy to keep us on the path and to keep our mind focused and always, what's the expression? Keep your eye on the prize, is that it? The prize is enlightenment of all sentient beings. That's always has to be in our mind. And the tool for getting there is our own enlightenment. So, so we really need to study and meditate on these topics to understand, you know, how rare and precious this opportunity we have right now is, and how hard it will be to find again, and how we only have this perfect human rebirth for a very short time. You know, even if we did live 100 years, that's, you know, in that's nothing in the perspective of infinite time. You know, beginningless and endless time. 100 years is nothing. While we're in it, in the middle of it, it seems like, you know, oh, such a long time, you know, and it's like, you know, will this day ever never end? You know, I mean, it's like, yeah, well, because we don't feel the subtle impermanence. You know, we understand the gross impermanence, you know, the grey beard and whatever, but you know, the subtle impermanence is really the one to understand, to feel, see our life as an hourglass and feel the sand running out all the time, the levels going down. That's us. And we don't feel that urgency to make every moment useful by generating bodhicitta and doing everything with bodhicitta. So that's why these meditations come early on the path, to really motivate us to overcome the obstacles and reach the end as quickly as possible.
Hello, Nick. It's
Hi.
Vicky. I have a
Yeah,
question. Since many or most of us might end up in the hell regions, and we won't know why we're there, we won't remember why we're there, then what purpose does that serve?
The purpose is to expand the karma that we created to be there.
What do you mean expand the karma?
Expend.
Oh,
Going up.
expend.
You.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, nobody put us there to learn something.
Oh, I guess I would, yeah, okay. Maybe that's, I've never been a Christian, but I guess maybe that's what Christians think, like punishment. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I don't know and you know, I'm sure there are, you know, there are many different schools of Christianity, I guess, and different traditions and probably different explanations, and maybe even within one church, Catholic Church or, you know, Presbyterian Church or whatever church, they maybe different priests would have different explanations of the same thing. I don't know. You know, I was I went to Presbyterian school for a private school for 10 years, and we had religious instruction and morning assembly every day, you know, with prayers and a Bible reading and singing a hymn. and I don't remember much in the way of philosophical instruction. I don't even remember what the religious studies class were. I think I kind of thought they were a joke, actually. But I don't know if anybody here is an expert on Christianity, but and it's, you know, it's one of the things I could never quite understand. That, like, if God created us and created us imperfectly, then what kind of creation is that, and why? Why create? I mean, why would? So I presume we go back to a time when there was just God, and the world didn't exist because He hadn't created it yet. And then I don't know what He's doing at that time, but maybe He got bored or something, and then decided to create all this suffering world and create the suffering, and you know, give people a chance to. This seemed like a cruel game, you know. So I could never get my mind around the whole thing, to be honest. And honestly, it really blows my mind that, I hope I'm not insulting anybody here, but I just don't see why how anyone can be a Christian and believe all the things that they seem to believe. And that, you know, until I ran into Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I was, you know, a scientific materialist. I just thought, you know, this world is the result of physical processes, and you know, the mind comes from comes from activity in the brain, some electrical or chemical or combination of that sort of activity in the brain, and you get one life, and when it's over, and that's the end of everything. And so the purpose is to, for me, was to have as good a time as possible, and you know, damn the consequences, because this is all we got, one life. But then, and you know, my mother was a card-carrying atheist, and even though they sent me to a religious school to get a good education, or, you know, they thought a better education than public education. You know, if I brought Christianity home, it was pretty quickly snuffed out. So that's how I grew up, and until I was 30, then I ran into the Lamas, and then when I understood that Buddhism, you know, some people say it's not a religion. You know, I think it's, I don't know, you don't really need to give it a label, religion or psychology or lifestyle or philosophy, or, I mean, whatever, you know. But when I understood that Buddhism is a religion without a God, then I became a little more open to it, you know, because you didn't have to deal with this problem of the all-loving, all-powerful God creating a huge mass of suffering, and then showing you a path out of it by loving Jesus, and if you don't follow that path, being damned to hell forever. I mean, you know, I didn't get that at all. So when I found Buddhism is very different, that that Buddhism doesn't have God, Buddhism has karma, a sort of immutable law of cause and effect, that if you do this, you know, if you kill and torture sentient beings, you're creating the causes in your own mind to experience that kind of suffering, but worse, yourself. And that's labeled hell, you know, or, you know, hungry ghost or animal or whatever, different kind of throwing karmic results. So, what do you think, Vicky?
I guess I so far haven't seen an explanation as to how an animal, for example, does progress, because we're always being told animals can't study the Dharma. So how do we get out of the hell realms?
Well, here we are. We were in the hell realms and we got out. So, and hopefully we're creating a lot of other causes now in this life by practicing Dharma to get out in future if we find ourselves reborn in hell or in the lower realms anywhere again. And that is, we create the cause to be born in the lower realms, and that is that rebirth doesn't last forever. It lasts as long as the karma lasts to be there. And you know, just as when this life finishes, if we don't have control over our mind at the time of death, which we may or may not have, depending on how well we practice between now and then, if we don't have control over our mind, then we're kind of at the mercy of whatever throwing karma comes up. Remember the 4 karmic results, the precipitating or throwing karma that throws you into the next life, and then the 2 kind of karmic results similar to cause, and then the environmental result. We talked about those before, I don't remember, but I'm sure you've all heard that. So, you know, they're fundamentals of karma. So at the end of the hell being's life, or the animal's life, or the hungry ghost's life, when that karma finishes and that being dies, then whichever karma is closer or stronger or more habitual, you know, there are different factors that determine which karma ripens next, including throwing karmas or precipitating karmas, the karmas that throw you into your next life. So it's like this karmic roulette wheel, you know, we're not quite sure what number will come up. So in most cases, we have huge preponderance of negative karma and a little tiny bit of positive karma in competition with it. So the chances are, when you die, whether it's this human life or whether it's a lower realm life, the chances are much stronger that a negative karma will come up and you'll be again born in the lower realms, whether it's again in the hell realms or a hungry ghost or as an animal. In our previous life, somehow, for whatever reason, whatever we were, we may have been human, we may have been something else, the karma to be reborn human ripened, and here we are. And that wasn't an intentional creation at the end of the previous life. It was just the karma that was ready to pop, and that brought us into this life. So so that, you know, the analogy of the, did I talk about it last week? The blind turtle. We talked about that, didn't we? That comes in perfect human rebirth teaching. Did I mention that last week or not? I can't remember.
No, Dr. Nick, you didn't mention it. The golden.
Maybe not, but I think a lot of people have heard it.
Pardon?
I think maybe we've all heard it, maybe not.
So, you know, there's this vast ocean, which symbolizes samsara, cyclic existence, and in the depths, there's a turtle swimming around. That's a sentient being, and it's a blind turtle, which it's an ignorant sentient being. And then once every 100 years, the sentient being comes to the surface of the ocean, sticks its head out for a moment, and then goes down again. So that's like coming to the surface, sticking head out. It's like being born in the upper realms. On the surface of this vast ocean, there's a golden ring floating around, you know, and blown by the winds and tides. So the turtle can come up anywhere, the ring can be anywhere. So the likelihood of the turtle sticking its head through the ring is infinitesimally small. So that's like most of our lives are spent in the depths of the ocean, in the lower realms. Once in a while, every 100 years maybe, or less frequently probably, we'll be reborn in the upper realms. But in the upper realms, we can be born in the God realms, or we can be born in a human. And we saw last time that, you know, in the human realms, you know, you have to be born in the right time, the right place, with the right kind of mindset and so on, to have a perfect human rebirth. So most of the time, even if we're born human, we're not born in contact with the Dharma. So, you know, the chances of having a perfect human rebirth are really incredibly small, like the chances of a turtle coming up to the surface and putting its head through the golden ring. So, but, you know, that's what we depend on when our life in the hell realms finishes and we get a rebirth. The chances of getting a perfect human rebirth, or even a human rebirth, or even an upper realm rebirth, are very small. Most of the time we spend in the lower realms, dying, being reborn in the lower realms. So I think in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, anyway, there's a bunch of causes that determine which karma ripens next. It says there's a thing here, the differences that make for heavy or light karma. So heavy by nature. So, you know, killing is a heavier karma than gossiping. So the result of that will tend to ripen sooner than the result of killing will tend to ripen sooner than, so heavy karma will ripen sooner than a light karma. Heavy because of intention. So, you know, an action done out of anger will be stronger than an action done out of ignorance, not even knowing you did it, or out of some attachment or something like that, you know. Heavy because of the deed. So killing sadistically is heavier than inadvertently stepping on an ant, although both result in killing. Heavy because of the basis. So if you kill a bodhisattva, it's much worse than killing a mosquito, just because of the object. Or, you know, harming our guru is worse than harming, you know, a cow. Heavy because of always being done. So if actions that we have strong habit for will more likely to ripen than something that we do only once in a blue moon, you know. And also heavy because of no antidote. So if we haven't purified the karma, you know, karmas that we haven't purified will ripen sooner than karmas that we have or that we've tried to purify. Or, you know, if we regret a positive action, that will weaken the result. If we rejoice in a negative action, that will cause that karma to ripen more quickly. So you see, there are many different factors that determine which of the billions and billions and billions of karmas that we have stored in our mind stream will ripen next. Have I mentioned this book? This is Geshe Zopa's commentary. Geshe Zopa, you know Geshe Zopa? Sure, he came to Florida back in the early days of Thupten Khunga Center, maybe in the 90s or something. I don't know if any of you met him. He's guru of Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He was Lama Yeshe's teacher in Tibet, even in the 50s, before they left. And then he was professor at University of Wisconsin in Madison for many years. Passed away a few years ago. Actually, his wisdom published his autobiography called Like a Waking Dream. Anyway, so over many decades, he gave a commentary on the Lamrim Chenmo, Great Lamrim. So, you know, the 3 volumes of this. There are 5 volumes of Geshe-La's commentary on Lamrim Chenmo, Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chenmo. This is volume 2, and it's on karma. So this is by far the most extensive teaching on karma that you can find, I think, in English. And like every other book I wave at you, highly recommended. But if you want to know all about karma, this is your book, volume 2 of the Steps on the Path to Enlightenment, the Wisdom publications. So, Vicky, the answer's in here, not in here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we must be having fun. Time is flying. Okay, so let's move on to the next verse. Well, so just one more thing. So in terms of energy being generated within ourselves, by ourselves, the energy to, you know, the rocket fuel that propels us to enlightenment, perfect human rebirth, impermanence and death, and understanding karma, understanding that we've created almost no positive karma, nearly all negative karma since beginningless time. And even in this life, since meeting the Dharma, we've probably created more negative than positive karma, sad to say. So the chances of, if we were to die soon, you know, without having really purified our mind, without having created a lot of merit, the chances are that we will again be reborn in the lower realms. So then the next teaching, which is not specifically mentioned here, but the next teaching in the Lamrim comes of the extensive teaching on the 3 lower realms, what it's like to be in the hells, 8 hot hells, 8 cold hells, 4 neighboring hells, occasional hells, all different kinds of hells. What it's like to be a hungry ghost. I think there are 36 varieties of hungry ghost, although I don't know that they're specified in these texts. There's a Kagyu Lamrim called by Gampopa, who was one of the main disciples of Milarepa, and I think he's said to be the actual founder of the Kagyu tradition. Gampopa wrote a Lamrim text called The Jewel Ornament of Liberation. I think maybe goes into some of the different kinds of hungry ghost there. You know, what it's like to be an animal, the different kind of animals, the different kind of sufferings that they experience. So all these teachings come in the Lam Rim, and they also give us the energy to renounce, you know, through fear of the result. We need to have fear of the cause, understanding that you can't experience the result without creating the cause. You know, one of the 4 aspects of karma. Karma is definite. You know, positive karma brings happiness. Negative karma brings suffering. Karma is expandable. You know, even a small negative karma can bring a huge negative karmic result. A small positive karma can bring a big positive karmic result. That you can't experience the result of a karma you haven't created, and that created karma never goes away by itself. It remains in our mind stream until either it's experienced out, like a seed ripening, or we destroy it. So either, you know, if it's a positive karmic seed, we destroy it through not having dedicated it, and through anger or wrong views, we can destroy positive karma, or negative karma, we can purify doing Vaishasattva or other practices, you know. So 4 karmic results. So again, if we understand the consequences of not practicing Dharma, rebirth in lower realms, that gives us energy to develop renunciation of cyclic existence, to stop creating negative karma. So again, that's part of the energy we need to propel us further on the path. So like a shadow follows the body, the results of negative and positive karma ensues. So karma is like a shadow that follows the body. Karma is like the shadow that follows the mind, you know. So then Rinpoche said, with respect to karma, there are 10 non-virtuous actions and 10 virtuous ones. We must avoid the former and practice the latter. Thus, the teaching says, finding firm and definite conviction in this, karma, please bless me always to be careful to abandon even the slightest of negativities and to accomplish only virtuous deeds. In other words, please bless me always to be careful in the practice of avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions and observing the 10 virtuous ones. So we all know what the 10 non-virtues are, right? The 3 of body, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. 4 of speech, lying, slandering, speaking harshly, gossiping. 3 of mind, covetousness, ill will, and wrong views. So those are the 10 non-virtues, and the virtues are the opposite, you know. Next virtue tells us that no matter how much we enjoy samsaric pleasures, there's no way to find satisfaction in them. Seeking samsaric pleasures is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain and cannot be replied upon. So, you know, what we call happiness and pleasure is not happiness or pleasure, it's just suffering in disguise. Recognizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate the strong wish for the bliss of liberation. So Rinpoche's, Khunu Lama Rinpoche's commentary is, well, I remember there's a teaching by the Buddha, a sutra called the Sutra of Causes and Effects of Actions. And I think that's on lamayeshi.com, on Lama Yeshe website. So that's like an amazing teaching where I haven't read it for a while, I've forgotten, but someone asked the Buddha, why is this person like that? Why is that life like that? And the Buddha explains what karma those beings created to have to experience that result. The Sutra of Causes and Effects of Actions. So Rebecca, if you can't find that, let me know. Whatever beautiful objects we see, we're never satisfied. Whatever pleasant sounds we hear, we're never satisfied. It's the same with all other objects of the senses. No matter how much television we watch or movies we see, we'll never be satisfied. This is how it is. And all samsaric pleasures are the door to samsaric suffering. And, you know, we keep going through that door again and again. No matter how many samsaric pleasures there are, they are of no value. All past great meditators and holy beings have recognized temporal pleasure as a shortcoming of samsara, as faulty and deceptive. They have never seen samsaric pleasures as valuable or good. So then Lama Tsongkhapa, Foundation of Good Qualities, continues. Led by this pure thought, you know, the pure thought of abandoning samsaric pleasures and developing renunciation, led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the pratimoksha vows, you know, the vows of individual liberation. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. So the very foundation of Dharma practice is a moral discipline, you know, avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions. And the essence of practice of morality is keeping precepts, taking vows. That's where we pick up next week. Okay, so if you have any questions, bring them along next time. So as Rebecca mentioned, I think next time is the last one, right, of this mini-series. Hopefully we'll get to the end. Okay, so thank you very much for allowing me to rave on. Hopefully it's in line with the teachings, so we created merit there. And I mean, certainly reading the words of Lama Tsongkhapa and Khunu Lama Rinpoche. This teaching was translated by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, by the way. And we generated bodhicitta to start this session, like we should generate bodhicitta for eating our lunch and whatever else we do the rest of our day, the rest of our life. So that's the way to get enlightened. So before we destroy this merit, let's dedicate it. So think, you know, because of this merit, so visualize the merit we've created in the last hour and a half as this huge pile of wish-fulfilling jewels can bring about all happiness to all beings. So I think because of this merit, you know, may all sentient beings quickly reach enlightenment. Okay, guys, thank you very much. And I hope to see you next week.